I am not against minimum wages out and out. I just believe that they should be the prerogative of the states and of cities. I do not believe the federal government should be involved in minimum wages. And the reason for that is every time we raise the wages, minimum wages, we distance ourselves from the rest of the world and make it more difficult to keep manufacturing in the United States. The United States has traditionally been a country of small business owners. And when we raise the cost to the small business owner, he reacts very quickly to raise his selling prices. So you raise his costs, he raises his selling prices. You raise his costs, he raises his selling prices. And that continues to go on until he either reaches a level that he can't go further and it puts him out of business, which creates a lot of unemployment, or it keeps going up and up and up endlessly until we as a country decide not to keep increasing his costs artificially. In China, with the currency valuations the way they are today, is paying $1.50 to $2.50 an hour. Let's just take $2 an average. The yuan, which is the Chinese dollar, floats, but China keeps pressure to keep it down. But if it floated to where it really belongs, that $2 an hour would double to $4 an hour, which is what they pay in China. So at $2 or $4, they're not that far away from us at, say, $10, especially when you consider the productivity of the American worker. The rate I'm talking about with China, I don't want to get too confusing here, but there's the effective rate and the actual rate. The actual rate is $2 an hour because that's what the Chinese floats as. But the effective rate, if the yuan were to float up to where it belongs in relation to the dollar, would be twice as much. So what that effectively means is if we can buy a bike from China with $25 worth of labor in it, and the yuan floats up, that $25 worth of labor becomes $50. Now, a bike coming in for $50 worth of labor in it, we can compete very nicely with that. But when the United States government raises the minimum wage, much more happens. In the short term, the guy struggling to make ends meet to feed his family, he feels so much better because he's gotten a little bit more money in his paycheck. But in terms of international commerce, the United States has gone from like this to China, but maybe like this to China. So more jobs leave the United States and go to China because it's that much cheaper. If we can somehow hold the top on that and hold our minimum wage to where it is now or reduce it, then what you've got is China trying to stay low but being forced to raise its wages. Once there's parity, jobs will fly back here. Instead of raising the minimum wage, why don't we give everybody a raise of like $1? You know how we can do it? Have them exempt from paying Social Security and have their employers exempt from paying their share of Social Security. If you're making $7.25 an hour and your employer gives you the 7 or 8% he pays and you keep the 8% that's taken out, and the federal government says nobody pays taxes till they hit $20,000, all of a sudden you got well over $1 in your pocket for every hour you've worked, more than you had before. No minimum wage, no changing the parity between Vietnam, China, Cambodia, and all these other places that are stealing our jobs. No change. But all of a sudden everybody feels more wealthy. Then turn around and take that money out of somebody else that can afford it. Why are we taxing the hell out of these poor people? It's insane. So that's my solution. Cut the taxes on the guys making minimum wage. Don't change the minimum wage. 2, and you can do it over progressive. You can say, okay, the first year you don't have to pay minimum, or you don't have to pay Social Security. And we'll change the tax law for next year. You don't pay any income taxes, federal income taxes. Then the next year you say, okay, the employer no longer has to pay it to the government, he pays it to you. Requires the employer to pay that to you. That's it. Now you've given everybody a buck raise. And you haven't changed, the parity between countries. So important. It's worth talking about.